Hello, I'm Dr. Carl, and today I wanted to talk about one of the biggest and yet strangest forms of sexism that men in many of the world's countries face, and that is higher retirement ages. Now, I wouldn't say this is the biggest example of sexism against men. After all, sexist military service obligations, which I call the glorified national sexist enslavement of young men, is worse. And overall, probably the biggest form of discrimination men face in general is, as I'm fond of saying, the biggest example of sexism in the world today is the ridiculous notion that only one sex has ever been the victim of it. So in essence, all of men's issues combined is the biggest example of sexism in the world today, and of course is the biggest example of sexism that men face. But the higher retirement age thing is a major example of sexism that men face, and it's also probably the most bizarre in that I don't even get the thinking on it. I mean, it is true, I abhor these sexist drafts, but I do at least understand in a historical context how they start in the past. As Warren Farrell points out, every society that ever survived did so off the backs of male disposability. In most of the world's countries, they have long outlived their usefulness, and if they're going to continue, they should be expanded to include women, although again, I'd much rather they be ended. And they've long expanded in some countries, especially Switzerland, beyond simply national defense into every man takes his turn defending the country or building character or some of these other excuses. Here's the thing. I don't want to digress into this topic. But forced military service throughout the whole of history was never more than a necessary evil, and it should never exist beyond when it's absolutely necessary, and even then it's a necessary evil. But again, I mention that in that I at least see how that historically started, and sometimes things in history can linger well past their sell-by dates. This one, however, I don't even know why a distinction is being made. For those of you who don't know, in many of the world's countries, the retirement age for men is higher than women. Thankfully, in many of the world's countries, there's no difference. Not one country has it the other way around. And yet, in most of the world's countries, men die younger. So the sex that dies younger is the sex that retires later. Let me give you an example here in the Republic of Georgia. The retirement age for women is 60. For men, it's 65. The life expectancy for men in Georgia is 70. For women, it's 78. The average Georgian woman can expect 18 years of retirement. The average man, 5. Now, if you were to reverse the two, and I'm certainly not calling for that, but if you were, the average Georgian woman could expect 13 years of retirement. The average Georgian man, 10. So even in reverse, women would have more years of retirement. Now the thing is, if the life expectancy statistics were reversed, though I totally disagree with it, I don't think policy should be based on that, I can at least see where a reasonable person would support higher retirement ages for men. But the thing is, the life expectancy statistics are not reversed. Furthermore, take this into consideration. While not every man, indeed probably not even the majority at this point, men have jobs that involve heavy lifting, back-breaking work, or dangerous or disgusting, pretty much everybody who does have a job like that is a man. I know in the case of the United States, 93% of workplace fatalities are men, and I'm sure statistics are similar for other countries as well. Likewise, women often take time off work to raise children, which is great, but men often don't, which is bad. I think men should get time off work to raise children. I'm proud that Sweden has been great about having men take time off work to raise children. I mean, putting all this together, if anyone's earned the right to retire younger, it's men. But again, why make a distinction? I spoke to a feminist here 5 years ago, I think she was even the ombudsman for equality, although don't quote me on that, I could be wrong about that. And I said, I'm with the National Coalition for Men. And she said, oh, well, we don't have any legislative discrimination against men. You could have knocked me over with a feather. First of all, there's a sexist draft here in the Republic of Georgia, but I mentioned the retirement age issue precisely because I thought it would be less emotionally charged than the draft issue. Her response, it's a matter of opinion as to whether that's discrimination. I said, okay, but what is it? What is the retirement age here? It's like, of course I know it. I just want to hear you say it. I tried 3 times. She refused to even say it. I mean, okay, you think it's a matter of opinion, but can you at least say it? Because obviously, if she said it, it would have been the spoken equivalent of seeing it on a piece of paper in black and white for all to see. It's blatant discrimination. It's blatant sexism. I also want to add, not to digress, that it's ridiculous to think that all discrimination is legislative. I mean, there's plenty of issues of sexism that are not, but at any rate. So, I was just floored by this. I mean, I stayed calm. I mean, I came home, but needless to say, I wanted to leap out of my skin. How can you say that that is not a clear example of sexism? In fact, it's the other way around. If the law is making a distinction between men and women, absent a very obvious biological difference, the default is that it is sexist, and the default of sexist is that it's wrong, unless you can show a clear justification for it. And that is the debatable part. But here, I can't even think of a weak justification, or any. And if you're going to use arguments of, well, men have it so much better in general, my response is, first of all, I don't even agree with that. But if I accept that argument, then you're still admitting I'm right. You're admitting it's discrimination. You're indirectly claiming that, well, it's discrimination that helps balance out other discrimination. In short, you're using a 2 wrongs make a right argument. And we all know 2 wrongs do not make a right. So, needless to say, I was very upset. And I'm sorry I had to pause, but an airplane just flew overhead and made a huge noise, so it would have been hard for you guys to hear the last part of my video here. So, at any rate, sorry I ended up hitting the pause button by accident there. So, at any rate, I wanted to conclude this video by discussing the broader implications of this. Hypothetically, admittedly I'm making assumptions, but let's say the retirement age here in Georgia were reversed. Do you think someone like that would be willing to accept the argument that it's a matter of opinion as to whether or not that's discrimination? And by the way, I'm saying even if the life expectancy statistics were the same. Now, you reverse both the retirement age and the life expectancy statistics, I guarantee you, someone like that would be livid if someone, especially a man, claimed it's a matter of opinion as to whether that's sexist. Indeed, that will be at the top of her agenda, and rightly so, because that would be a huge example of sexism against women. So basically, look at the implications of this thought process. It's not sexist because it goes against men. Now you might say, well, I don't think she'd see as going against men. Oh, if it were the other way around, it certainly would be seen as going against women. So, it's not sexist if it goes against men. Well, I guess that's Kafkaesque. If it's not sexism if it goes against men, then yeah, I guess there isn't any sexism against men whatsoever. But of course, that disgusting thinking is the ultimate sexism. I'm Dr. Carl. Enjoy.